Hello, welcome back to Science with Dr. Carl. I'm Lucy Smith, and this week we chatted if you could survive a bungee cord breaking mid-jump. When you've got a headache, what is actually causing the pain? And I explain in detail to Dr. Carl how to do a sinus rinse. Yes, it feels good to be back. Dr. Carl joins me now. Carl, I've missed you.
We've been like ships in the night going this way and that, but you've had fun in the big shift on the breakfast show.
I know.
And you've been off to courses learning stuff.
I know.
Oh my God.
I'm ready and I'm excited to jump into these questions, but we need to chat because you got your first vaccine shot.
Yeah, it was fun. So I haven't had a fever for ages, so I had it on a Saturday, midday. Sunday morning, I did hard work, like putting the washing on the line. I mean, you got to get the washing on early, like around 9 o'clock. And then around 10:30, I was feeling distinctly tired. I was in bed by 11 and started having fevers of 39. I haven't had fevers for a decade or
Wow,
more.
yeah.
When was the last time you had a fever?
Oh, gosh, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. So I had a real fever and it just went on all day. And I'm lying in bed watching all these bad shows on streaming TV thinking, yeah, I'm not going to watch that. No, that's crap too. That's crap too. For some reason, being really tired lowered my threshold of putting up with crap on TV. So I went through a whole lot of things. Said, I'm not going to watch that. And then when my wife came to bed, she said, oh, this is nice. You're nice and toasty warm. So there I am, this little radiator at 39. And woke up in the morning, and by mid-morning, it was as though it had never happened.
Oh, wow.
And so when the second dose comes, which for AstraZeneca is in 3 months, I should have close to 100% protection against severe disease. In other words, you're going to die, that one. Maybe 80-90% against moderate disease, which I think can still leave you with long COVID, and apparently you don't want to get that, and about 50-60% protection against infecting other people. So it's complicated. So some people sort of think that if you have the vaccine, you kind of have this magic bubble around you. No, there's things going on inside your body. So I'm very glad to have had it, and I'm looking forward to getting the next one.
3 months' time.
3 months' time.
Okay.
So everybody should get it. Sooner the better. Love vaccines.
Dr. Carl, should we jump into some of these questions?
Hooray.
Let's do it. We've got Alistair from Greenbank kicking us off. Dr. Al, what's your question?
Hi guys, love the show. I'm just wondering why coffee has such an effect on some people and other people it doesn't. So if I have a large coffee, I'm really busy, and then other people seem to be able to sleep on it.
Okay. Now, the first thing to realise is that coffee is not a stimulant. Sorry, the caffeine. There's a whole bunch of chemicals in there, and there are, based on observational studies like the American Nurses Study, where they look at 1/3 nurses for 1/3 of a century, there are good effects from having coffee, both caffeinated and decaffeinated, in that it improves your life expectancy, protects you against prostate cancer, liver disease, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, improves the outcome in all those, and also if you have liver and skin cancers, did I mention liver disease? Yes. But these are only observational studies. With regard to the actual caffeine itself, caffeine is not a stimulant. Amphetamines are a stimulant. Thyroid hormone is a stimulant. Caffeine is a blocker of a depressant. And you make your own natural depressant, which is called adenosine. And first thing in the morning, you've got hardly any adenosine, this chemical, floating in your system. So having coffee kind of works on a placebo effect. And hey, if the placebo is cheap enough and doesn't have any bad side effects, I love a good placebo first thing in the morning. And the effect of having coffee first thing in the morning is like throwing matches onto a big fire, because you're already getting a boost from your cortisol, which is a hormone meant to keep you awake and get to deal with the terrible stress of being alive for another day. Oh my God, it's 7 o'clock. I'm alive for another day. How will I survive? That sort of thing. So the caffeine works best at around 2 hours once you've woken up. But, if you've got a placebo thing going, that's fine. Now, there's a small subset of people who need caffeine, to go to sleep.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So what they've got is a sleep center in their brain that is not activated enough, and it can get activated by having the caffeine. And so for a small number of people, they need caffeine to help them go to sleep. But it's a very small percentage of people, like 1 in 1,000.
That's like my mum needs to have a cup of tea before she goes to bed.
Well, I won't. Is it with tea bags or leaves?
Leaves. Loose leaf, yeah.
I love your mum.
She'll make a whole pot of tea.
Oh my God, she's
And
good.
she'll always offer me one, but then I'll be weeing all night and I'll be
That does
awake.
happen. On the other hand, with the excess, what you can do is make kombucha,
Oh.
which I've been getting into for fun. Yeah.
We'll
And
talk about that.
That's another time.
Yeah.
Onwards.
I wouldn't know
Does
about
that
this
help there, dear
kombucha
listener?
hobby. Alistair, is that all good?
Are you happy with that?
Yeah, great, excellent.
Thank you, Dr. Elsie.
I just find that when I have it, my heart races, I sweat, and obviously that's it triggering the chemicals in my body. So
Okay, what you can do in that case is try having a half dose. Ask them for a really weak one. Decaffeinated coffee has about 1% or so of caffeine still in it, but ask them for just like a half coffee. They can do a double shot. Ask them for a half shot and see if that works for you. So that works for my wife because when she has a full one, her heart races a bit.
Alistair, give it a try and then tell us how you feel next week.
Yeah, try the half.
Text us in. We've got Taylor here from Sydney. Taylor, you got a question about cyborgs. What's going on?
Dr. Taylor?
Taylor, have I got you? Oh, wait, no, I don't. That's my fault. I'm getting back into it. Hang on. Taylor, all right, we're ready. You got a question about cyborgs?
I sure do. That's better now. Hello, doctors. I'm kind of fascinated with cyborgs and humans practically becoming a little bit more robotic, with limbs and organs and whatnot. I was just wondering how far are we from actually enchanting our bodies robotically?
There are already over 100,000 people on the planet with mini computers implanted into their brains to help them deal with the effects of Parkinson's disease, Huntington's chorea, and in some cases, Alzheimer's disease. So look up the videos with the Parkinson's disease. And so the person is shaking. They've got these involuntary hand shaking things, and they can barely get words out. They say, I want to press it. And then they press the button and they activate the thing inside their brain by remote control. And blow me down, their speech is smooth and their hand stops shaking.
Wow.
So we're heading down that pathway. It'll be an intermediate stage before we get to be fully skilled with modifying the body via genetics. So we've got a whole bunch of auxiliary technologies helping us with artificial eyes. So there are some people now who have got, because they've lost their eyes in a terrible accident, they have little cameras which then wire into their brain, into the visual cortex at the back, and the resolution is fairly low, and we're going to get that resolution higher and higher with years to come. But, of course, a much better repair would be that we tickle the DNA into growing another eyeball, which it did while you were still floating around in your mother's belly. So, but the cyborg thing will be an essential part of it, and what I'm looking forward to is the bit where we get a quantum computer buried in our brain. So that way you've got access to all this data. Like I've got a relatively terrible memory, and I'd love to know the exact height of Mount Everest and the exact depth of the Challenger Deep. And if I could have, say, 10 gigabytes of hard data on a little memory chip, I'd love that. But then having a quantum computer as well, yeah, you can tell I read too much science fiction.
You want it all. Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you.
We've got people texting in about the impact of caffeine on sleep. Mike from Newey said, when I drink coffee, sometimes I can't handle more than a few sips. Other times I'll drink the whole thing and feel like a nap. Georgia in Brisbane, you said that was my ex. He needed a coffee before going to sleep and would sleep all night. Me, a sip of coffee and I'm awake all night. And I love it.
Well,
Awake all night.
Yeah. Do you still find the smell of coffee better than the taste?
Yeah.
It's very rare that you have a single origin coffee and you think, oh my God, that's as good as the smell. But it's so rare.
We've got Phil here from Hobart. Dr. Phil.
Dr. Phil, welcome.
G'day, doctors. How's it going?
Peachy keen, thank you.
Yeah, I drink about 4 cups of coffee a day too, like double shots. So
Or double shots. You might be pushing it a little bit and you might not. They sort of recommend about 4 regulars a day, bearing in mind that a regular is about 100 milligrams of caffeine. But when they actually went to the trouble of testing how much caffeine there is, they found that in one particular shop on the Goldie that it varied between 50 and 250 milligrams.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's a 5 to 1 range. So anyway, onwards, Dr. Phil. What do you got for us?
well, my question is, I'm a builder, and my pain threshold, it seems to be a lot better than what it was when I started. But I'm wondering, is that because I've damaged all the nerve endings in my body as I've gone along, or is it something that you learn, or is it what you get when you're born, your pain threshold?
There's all of the above. So on one hand, you can damage the nerve endings, so you simply just don't feel the pain. And or also you could be covering your hands, your working areas, with a layer of callus that stops the responses from going through. And also, you will have learnt along the way that something that looks fairly horrendous to the outside person isn't actually that harmful, and so you will have conditioned yourself into ignoring it. And then separately from that, we've found 3 families in the world, or groups of people, who don't feel pain by 3 different pathways. A family of circus athletes in Pakistan who usually die in their 20s because they fall and break and the bone is sticking out through their skin. And they don't feel any pain. And a woman in England who has something to do with her cannabinoid receptors, and a family in Italy, and I don't know their pathway by which they don't feel pain, but they literally do not feel pain. It's a weird thing.
Wow.
Because you need pain as a protective thing to think, I'm not going to hurt myself. So are you getting extra injuries, or you've learned to adapt to the fact that your pain threshold seems to have adjusted, Phil?
I feel like the pain threshold's adjusted. I feel like I'm constantly comparing it to old injuries. Like, I cut myself on the hand now, and I'll be like, oh, that doesn't hurt as much as when I put the circular saw through my finger.
Oh, God. But look,
I smashed my shin on, like, the tow ball of the truck, and it's like, oh, that doesn't hurt as much as that other time I fell off the motorbike, things like that.
Look, you definitely want to look after yourself, because all of these wonderful technologies, the cyborg stuff, the DNA stuff, it's still off in the future, and you want to keep yourself in good nick. So keep safe, because a lot of people get sick and get injuries and die in workplace circumstances. You really want to keep yourself in good nick.
All right, stay safe, Phil.
Trying.
And remember, without tradies, we have no civilization.
That's it. And we've got Chris from Brizzy here. Dr. Chris.
Dr. Chris, come on down.
What's your question?
Welcome.
How are you, doctors?
Peachy keen.
Thank you. Look, I was watching James Bond film, and it got me thinking a bit about bungee jumping.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if there's a point between the down and the up where if the cord were designed to break, you'd have a soft landing, like if you're over water or something, and kind of how big that window might be.
Well, you've tied the cord around your ankle or ankles, you then jump, and you're in free fall. If the rope were totally inextensible, if it wouldn't stretch at all, you'd come to a sudden halt and experience something like 5 or 10 or 20 or 30 Gs. You normally suffer permanent damage around 40 Gs, where blood vessels get torn off organs such as the heart. But the rope is very stretchy, and then you slow down at, say, 2 Gs until finally you come to zero velocity, hopefully 10 centimetres above the water, with your nose almost kissing it, going, oh my God, hope they've adjusted this right for my weight and everything, and then you go back up again. So what are you asking then exactly?
So, like, if it was designed to break, like...
what? It was designed to actually break?
Or, like, designed to break, so you would fall, but how big that window was between the down and up, because obviously... As you said, you're going down, but then they're still. So if it were to break when you were still, would you have a really soft landing on the water?
So in the context of the James Bond films Chris is watching, let's say you've got a villain.
A villain?
And they're
who strokes a white
jumping.
cat. Yeah, okay,
yes.
Well, it was GoldenEye, and he but at the bottom, and he shoots a little thing out into the rock, and pulls himself off. Obviously, that's not necessarily real, but
In a world where the bungee jump is going to break.
Okay, so what's going to happen is that if it has been specifically made just a little bit too weak, when it gets up to its highest G-force is when it will break. So you're experiencing 0 Gs, you're in free fall, you're effectively weightless, and then you begin to start stretching on the rope. And then depending on how you've manufactured the microstructure of the rope, normally you'll have it'll rapidly go from you experiencing 0 Gs because you're in free fall up to about, say, 1.5 or 2 Gs, and it'll stay at that level. So what you do is you design the rope to break at just exactly 2 Gs, so when it reaches its maximum G-force, when you would be probably maybe 20 metres, 30 metres above the ground, then you'd have to fall there. To try to, if you're very clever with and this field is called materials engineering, you could design the rope so that it would break, it would gradually build up to maximum Gs just before you came to a complete halt. That'd be pretty clever engineering. This is a difficult question you're asking. I don't think I can do a better answer than that because I'm working in a field I don't know much about, which is materials engineering.
But I like your thinking, Chris.
Yeah, this is good, Chris.
Have you ever bungee jumped, Dr. Carl?
No, because I've got a very large eyeball, because I'm highly myopic, very short-sighted, and therefore, according to Laplace's equation, the surface tension is 2T/r, and therefore, as a person with a large eyeball, I am liable to have a retinal detachment if anybody's really short-sighted, do not bungee jump.
Really?
Because you've got a chance of having a retinal detachment. I do this about once every 4 years, so now's the time to do it. If public service announcement, if you happen to notice that you're looking at something and then suddenly a cloud seems to come across your vision, like somebody's pulled a curtain across part of your vision, you have got 6 hours to get to an eye hospital. So you've got 6 hours to get to an eye hospital and just say retinal detachment, and then they'll just stitch it back on and you'll be fine. And there was a case when I did this several years ago, and a young lady was at a gymnast thing about 4 hours out of Melbourne, and she had it happen to her. She was 16, and she said, I've got a cloud across my vision. Dr. Carl says you have to take me to an eye hospital, and she got there in time. And the second one was in America, where some guy was listening to a podcast of the show, and he sent me an email later, and he said he was talking to his uncle in Montana. He was in California, and his uncle said, I had this weird thing. I've just had a cloud go across my vision, and he said, go immediately to an eye doctor. So that's the public service message for the next 5 years.
Oh, done. You've done it. We've got Joel here from Victoria. Joel, you got a question about beards?
Yeah, how you going?
Dr. Joel, welcome.
Thank you. I've just noticed with a lot of blokes around that they have a bald patch in their beard or on their face somewhere, and the hair just doesn't seem to grow. And also, the other thing is some people have like a white stripe or a white dot in their beard, and I was just wondering what that's from and what it is.
So the genetics of hair colour is taught in schools using a model that is really clear and simple and easy to understand, and totally wrong. In fact, it turns out that we don't understand why certain human males can have black scalp hair and a red beard. We don't understand that. We see it all the time. And with regard to the alopecia, the area where it's not growing, we don't have a good explanation for that except to say it goes back to 2 million years ago. So about 7 million years ago, the creatures that would become us split off from the chimpanzees. And nothing much happened for 5 million years. We hang around in the trees, we throw poo at each other, God knows what we do for 5 million years. And then 2 million years ago, 2 mutations happened. The first one of them was that our hips changed so that we could walk around on our hind legs, which meant that we could then use our hands for holding things. And we developed not just having a thumb, which we already had, but we had the brain to process things for the thumb to do, like rolling a pen. You get a pen between your thumb and forefinger and you roll it backwards and forwards. That's called the pinch maneuver. That's really sophisticated workmanship, and it means you can make tools. And the second mutation that happened was we lost our body hair. Hair's made of protein. The protein started going into our brain started getting bigger. So the mutation wasn't perfect. So we still were left with some hair on the face. Some sort of, I don't know, sexual marker or something. Hi, I'm big and robust, love me very much. I don't know. We know that we do have alopecia. We don't know why. If there are any dermatologists, please ring in on the magic number, Dr. Lucy.
1300 0555 36. Did you answer the part about the white part in the beard?
That relates to the fact that we don't understand the colour changes. Yeah. So what happens there is that for some unknown reason, it's beginning to go grey, and I'm still working up a story on that, why hair goes grey, and it's not related to the red, but why it goes in a single patch. We don't know that. I've been trying to relate that to the nerve distribution, the trigeminal nerve, and it doesn't fit in with anything. It's a mystery.
Thanks, Joel.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you.
I'm sorry I haven't given you the world's best answer.
I don't want everyone to go and point and stare, but Josh Merrill, who hosts Short, Fast, Loud here at the station, he's got a white patch in his beard, and it looks sick because he's so metal, and he's got beautiful red hair, but then he's got this singular white, almost lightning bolt through his beard. It looks great.
Red scalp hair and red beard hair?
And red beard, yeah.
Okay.
And then this white strip. Go and have a look. And listen to his show as well if you want via triplej.net.au. We got Shauna from Warragul here. Shauna, you want to know Dr. Carl's opinion on something?
Yeah, hi guys. I watched this documentary the other night on a certain streaming service. But I was just wondering, it was basically all about processed meats and how they can link towards cancers and diabetes and stuff like that. I just wanted to know your opinion on it, Dr. Carl.
I'm not an expert in anything. I just follow the facts, the latest data, and it does tend to change before you eventually settle down on something solid. Like, it's not like mathematics, where 7 by 2 is always 14. But when you're in dietary systems, you're dealing with really complex system. The bottom line is this. If you have small amounts of white meats, it has many benefits. At the other extreme, if you have large amounts of processed meats involving high fat content and lots of salt, then there's a definite shortening of life expectancy. And if you have moderate amounts of red meat, it's sort of somewhere in between. So you get benefits from the meat because you easily get your B12 and your iron. So I would tend to avoid processed meats, but every now and then they're really lovely and delicious.
You want a sanger?
Yeah, you want a sanger every now and then. So every now and then, yes, but not regular. And make sure you have your vegetables all the time. I'm sorry, that's really sounds like a grandmother.
They're the
doesn't it?
best for you.
Thanks, Shauna.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
While I was away, you had Claire Collins in and you did a food and nutrition special.
Yeah, I love having her in because she sticks to the science and she does so much good stuff for free. And she talked about her various websites, no money, no time. So if you're trying to avoid your addiction to eating out and you want to eat good, go to her website. It'll help you there a lot. It turns out, as an example, that if you're looking at people in later life, in other words, past 25, and they're overweight, if they're overweight and have the Mediterranean diet, their risk is of dying and bad things into their health is so much less than if they have the same amount of overweight and the non-Mediterranean diet. Eating good food is a long-term payoff. But on the other hand, it's so delicious, the takeaway, because it's so high in salt and fat, but it's so expensive.
You're telling me.
Mate,
I know. Sometimes when I make that choice, I'm like, is this actually really worth it though?
Yeah, well, I'm lucky because my daughter went to America and she left behind both of her lunchboxes, which have got 2 compartments with a zipper and they're insulated and they've got little flowers on them. So now I carry my lunch into work in a carry bag.
Oh, love it. And we've got Michelle from Brizzy here. Now, Michelle, you are speaking my language. I do this every morning. What's your question?
Oh, I love it. Okay, so I do a sinus irrigation for congested sinuses and all that sort of thing. When I run out of the powder that comes with the little kit and just use the tap water, I get really, really bad brain freeze when I, snort the water up. I'm just wondering what the difference is.
Okay,
why, if I use the boiled water with the powder, it's smooth and fabulous, and I'm a bit addicted to it, a bit like Lucy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But with the tap water, it's really bad brain.
We should maybe explain what the process is as well. So basically what you're doing is you have this little irrigation bottle, you put in some pre-boiled water. I usually
They've got the special water, they provide you with the special water?
No, you just use whatever's left in your kettle.
Pre-boiled.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, and then you make it, and then maybe you'll add like a little bit of boiled water at the top so it's lukewarm. You put in this powder, and then what you're doing is you're standing over a sink and you put the irrigation bottle against one nostril and then you squeeze it and water goes up one side and then out the other nostril. So it's taking everything with it, like all the yuckies. And then it makes blowing your nose a lot easier. And then you do it the other side and then you're all clear.
And how long does it take each morning?
How long does it take?
Yeah.
Oh, super quick. Yeah.
Like a minute or
Not
two.
long.
Yeah.
You can sometimes do it in the shower.
Yeah, exactly.
If
I
you've
do it in
got
the
the bottle
shower.
in there all prepped. Yeah.
And how many squirts would you do? Like one up each side, or 2 or 3?
So you do half a bottle on one side and half with the other, and it's a
Half a
continuous.
bottle?
It's only small. It's a
The bottle's
continuous
about
stream.
200 mils.
What?
It's a continuous stream that goes, but it goes so quick, Carl.
You squirt 100 mils up each
great.
nostril.
Yeah.
And does,
It comes out again.
okay, and do you have an incredibly satisfying look at the debris that comes out?
Yeah.
What do you see?
Oh, I don't want to say.
Okay. Does it come in different colours?
With the sinus congestion, it's technicoloured.
And
But
depending
it's
where
like
you
it's
are.
selling demons. It's fabulous.
Yeah.
Oh,
Depending where you're at in your sinus issues as well. Sometimes it might be
True.
clear. Sometimes it might be green or
Does it feel as
Yellowish.
good?
Yeah.
Oh, really? And does it feel as good as squeezing a pimple at the end of it?
yes.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I've never thought of that, but you're right.
Right. And now tell me straight. So if you use boiled water that you've allowed to cool down and then you bring it to a sort of room temperature, you do not get a sort of a fizzy brain freezy thing. But if you do use regular water out of the tap, you do get this sort of fizzy brain freezy thing.
Yep.
And right, okay, now the first reason that's happening is because evolution made a mistake, and the human body has many problems, and one of it is that the sinuses, the word sinus literally means an opening which has only one in and out. The way you go in is the way you go out, right? So it's like a coral, because a coral has only got one, it's an animal, which has only got one opening, and so it eats with its bum or it poos with its mouth, whatever you want, right? So you've got these sinuses, and wait for it, the drain point is not at the lowest point. It's as bad as a British-made sports car. That's how bad it is, right? So because of evolution, we've lifted our heads up and all that sort of stuff. Okay, I'm reckoning that we're looking at a version of what's called Henry's Law, but it's not exactly that, which is that as you heat up a liquid, the dissolved gas reduces. So think about water. Water is little boomerangs, so everything comes back to atoms. Water is made up of little boomerangs of H2O. So H2, you've got the two hydrogens on the end of the boomerang, the O in the middle. And this weird liquidy stuff, if it's just pure 100% water, is just boomerang, 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 and that's all there is. And that reacts nicely with the powder that you've got, which is some sort of weird mix that you buy.
Like a saline powder.
Okay, so you've got this weird powder. But if you've got regular water, in between those little boomerangs are barbells. Like your little hand weights at the gym. And they're molecules of oxygen and nitrogen. O2, N2, and they're physically located in between. And when you boil the water, when you heat the water up, you drive off those molecules. So at one extreme, down in the Antarctic, where the temperature is really low, mate, it's just loaded with oxygen. And you get this massive bio-life. You don't get huge diversity, but you've got terrific mass. Whereas in the Great Barrier Reef, the temperature's higher, so there's less oxygen, so you don't have as much mass per cubic meter or whatever it is. So I'm guessing that what's happening is that by boiling the water you drive off the oxygen and the nitrogen. I'm guessing that the oxygen that remains in tap water is reacting with those chemicals and making little bubbles and expanding and causing little pressure pain. I'm guessing. I'm not sure. This is my guess.
We've had Blair from Melbourne text in saying the powder used for the nasal irrigations is an electrolyte mix that makes the solution isotonic. Tap water is not isotonic, so it hurts or irritates the mucosa.
Oh, of course. Forget my first explanation. Who gave this?
Blair.
Blair, you rock. Okay, isotonic. The human body is slightly salty, and it's measured in milliosmoles. I'm not too sure what they are, but I guess that a milliosmole is 1,000 times smaller than a regular osmole. Look it up on Wikipedia, and it's about 290 milliosmoles. Your body is slightly salty, and so what you're doing is you're exposing to your naked, raw mucous membranes, not the skin, but hard up against your internal fleshy wetty stuff. You're exposing regular water, and it's not the same. Hang on, wait a sec. But the isotonicity, the milliosmoles of boiled water and unboiled water would be the same. But it could be something else, Blair. You're opening up new fields, Blair.
See, Michelle, I find that, if it's just straight water, it's like up in your nasal passage. But then if you put the salt in, it kind of eases it a little bit.
Yeah, it does.
So you can't do it with regular water. You got to have that saltiness. Okay, Blair, you took us on a little detour.
Michelle, thank you so much for allowing me to talk about sinus rinses on air.
Do you ever post photos of it?
Do you want me to show you a video of it?
Yes, please.
I'll do a video.
Do I get the Technicolor ones?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, loving it.
You got it. Yeah. You'll get the worst of the bunch. We got Liam from Newey here. Dr. Liam, what's your question?
In regards to my legs of a nighttime when I'm sleeping twitch really bad, and it can happen sometimes, and other nights it doesn't. But the nights that it does, it goes between my legs and my arms, and I just don't know what's going on.
Is it more with your legs than your upper body?
Yeah, it's more with my legs, but every now and then there'll be a night where it's in my arms, and it's almost like an electric shock sort of thing.
I'd go to your GP and mention this, and if it's what I think it is, it's called restless leg syndrome.
Yeah,
and
I've heard of that.
People describe this, and when I walked across Spain, we did 790 kilometres in 5 weeks. And for the first time in my life, I had this restless leg syndrome. And I spoke about it with a few people, and they said, that happens to me every night. It is really distressing. And we were doing about 25 kilometres a day for 5 weeks. I don't know if there are any particularly good treatments, I'm sorry to say, but it's worthwhile having it on your record with your GP. And let me emphasise, you have one GP who knows you and your body, and you don't have your medical records spread between a whole bunch of people. So that way you've got one person having a commitment to keep you in good nick.
What's actually happening in your legs when they twitch like that?
I don't know.
Well, because I find also with it that, you know, as I said, it doesn't happen every night, but it's like an electric shock. Yeah, it just goes up through your legs and all of a sudden...
I was surprised at how distressing it was, and I had it just barely at all for a very short period of time, so I've got a lot of sympathy for you.
It's really shit as well. Restless leg syndrome can actually be a side effect of anti-anxiety and antidepressant medication.
Oh, really?
So not only are you obviously treating something like that, but then there's this side effect which can, like you said, interrupt sleep. It's a mission. We've got Maddie here from Sydney. Dr. Maddie. What do you want to know?
Hi, doctors. How are you?
Very good, Dr. Maddie. Love you. Love your work. Everything you've ever done. Everything you ever will do. Lay it on us.
Love you too, Dr. Carl. I have a question about headaches.
Yep.
So I thought that in our brain we don't have any nociceptors, so that's how they can perform like open brain surgery on a patient while they're completely awake because they don't feel anything on their brain. So when we have a headache, where is the pain actually coming from? Like, what is actually hurting?
It's pain receptors in the, and here comes a fancy word, meninges, meninges. Now, there's a condition called meningitis, and itis is a special medical word meaning inflammation of. So if you've got inflammation of the meninges, that's really, really bad. And the reason that we have meninges is that we've got two very different blocks of stuff that we want to have married. And one is the hard, bony skull, very unforgiving. And the other one is the sort of mushy brain, like slightly warm butter, not totally warm. So, and you've got to marry them. So you've got three separate membranes. You've got one membrane, which is like a spider web that wraps itself really closely to the brain with all the crevices. And then you've got another membrane that wraps around that, and it's a bit thicker, and it doesn't sort of penetrate so deeply. And then finally, you've got a third membrane, which is kind of almost like thick, sort of moderately thick plastic. And so those three membranes enable you to have a soft, squishy brain inside a hard, bony skull, and it doesn't move around, as well located in place. And that's where the pain receptors are. So if you have a bit of a swelling or shrinking, that's where you feel your pain of your headache, apparently. Does that kind of help, Dr. Maddie?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks, Maddie. A lot of people getting in touch as well saying magnesium can help with restless leg syndrome.
This is one of those things that falls into the category of, which I learned in surgery, if there's one cure for something, it always fixes it. Whereas if there's a bunch of cures, they don't really work, but sometimes they do. So in this case, if you are lucky, magnesium will work for you and the side effects are remarkably low. I hope that it works for you, Dr. Liam.
We've got Brandon, the Earth Mover here from Brizzy. Dr. Brandon, what's your question?
I'm a mechanic and spent a fair bit of time in the earthworks scene as well. Obviously, I see a lot of rollers and compactors and any sort of machine with a bit of weight about it, always compressing the ground, and we are shifting stuff and sealing up the Earth's crust with, like, obviously your roads and concrete and all of that sort of stuff. I was just wondering if that and that, as well as sort of even just the traffic, like trucks and cars and stuff all around the world, as the population grows and more buildings and stuff are built and stuff, would that contribute to the heating of the Earth, given the heat from the Earth's core can't really vent through the Earth's crust as much.
So you're saying that if we compress the soil, it's less porous and therefore less heat can come through it.
Yeah.
It will initially because you've got but then it'll settle into a new steady state where you've got just as much heat coming through. The heat coming through is of the order of 1/10 of a watt per square metre, I think, from memory, and it's due to the radioactive decay down in the core of the 3 radioactive elements of uranium, potassium and thorium. So it might have a short-term effect. And in fact, I was thinking that compressing it would actually allow the heat to get out better than if you had insulating air. But it would definitely change things, but after a while it would settle down into a new steady state. So we're in a period that the geologists are calling the Anthropocene, anthropo meaning people, like in anthropology, where we humans are shifting roughly 40 billion tonnes of dirt each year from here to there across the planet, which is roughly equal to the amount of dirt shifted by all of the rivers on Earth, but is way less than the 1,000 billion tonnes of ice that we're melting and that water is relocating.
That ties pretty well into Jangles' question. Jangles, what do you want to know?
Yeah, g'day guys, how you going?
Very well, Dr. Jangles.
Yeah, well, that sort of ties into mine. Mine is, I've had this drunken discussion with a few people over time, but what it is pretty much with like the mass digging up of iron ore and materials for concrete, and that being shipped around the world like via ships and stuff, and getting stored in different places of the world and used, obviously. Does that, do you reckon, over time, do you reckon that's going to slightly tilt the axis off?
It is a very small factor. It's of the order of 30 billion tonnes a year compared to the 1,000 billion tonnes. So it's in the ratio of 30 to 1,000. We have tipped the Earth off its axis. We first noticed this around 1995, then more in 2005, and then more again. The Earth has tipped ever so slightly off its axis, which is amazing that we humans, via global warming, have been able to influence a planet, tip it like 12,700 kilometres across. But most of it is coming from the melting of the ice rather than
okay.
And by the way, the amount of concrete would be enough to build a band around the equator, 25 metres by 25 metres by 25 metres every year.
Wow.
That's how much concrete we make. It's huge.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Science with Dr. Karl. You can always give us a like, subscribe, and send this episode to someone who you think could get something out of it. I'm Lucy Smith. I'll catch you next week.
Every Triple J listener has great stories.
Yeah, but only the very best of them can be called Simply the Jest.
Yeah, Simply the Jest is Australia's most chaotic and hilarious storytelling hour, and now it's a freaking podcast.
Each week, you, the nation, sends in their best story on a chosen topic to us, Hobber and Hing.
And we are joined by Judge Jess Perkins to pick a winner.
This is just a taste of the kind of stuff you'll hear.
What? Like the serial killer?
Yeah, the serial killer, yeah.
No! Did you say you died?
Are you back from the dead?
What? Are you a ghost?
I am back from the dead.
Simply the Jest.
Get it on the Triple J app or wherever you get your podcasts.